Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let the Bible speak. Don't speak for the Bible. Open the book and let's have a revival. It's about the truth. It's about survival. Return to the basics. Get back in the Bible.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to lay some foundation because I want to share with you some verses and share with you some verses in the Bible about Jesus not being God. And I want to do it using the Greek grammar, but you've got to be able to understand the Greek grammar to keep up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a foundation. I'm going to make a teaching video. I'm going to read from Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics about predicate nominatives. I'm going to save it. And then when I go to the verses where it's necessary that I refer to it, I'll point you back to the playlist so that you can watch the video and educate yourself. So, that said, I'm going to go ahead and pull up Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics right now. And we're going to start with the definition. So, okay, got my big head right there in the way. So, it says, the definition, the predicate nominative, PN, is approximately the same thing as the subject, and it is joined to it by an equative verb, whether stated or implied. So, pause. It says that the predicate nominative is approximately the same thing as the subject because not all predicate nominatives will be equal, yet some will be. That's why he's speaking in that way. And when he's talking about an equative verb, when you're talking about maybe the verb of to be, if you say Trump is president, Trump is equal to the president at the moment. But if you say Biden is president, he wouldn't be equal to the president at the moment, but he would be president in a different sense, and that's what they're going to explain here very shortly. And whether it's stated or implied, the verb, the linking verb, does not always need to be there. And as we progress through this reading material, we'll see there's actually rules that can help us establish when there will be a linking, when there will be an implied verb. So that's my brief little commentary on that. So let's continue. It says, the usage is very common. Predicate nominatives everywhere. God is a rock. Jesus is a rock. Peter is a rock. You know, those are all predicate nominatives. Let me tell you real quick, what is a predicate nominative? All right, so simply put, hello, welcome. I see you down there, Jared. And Walter, I'm not sure if you're friend or foe. I've met some people with Teach Yahweh that I don't really remember everybody just yet. So, Anthony, God help you, man. All right, welcome TikTok, everybody's watching YouTube. So, let me tell you real quick. If you have two nouns in the nominative case, you could have a pronoun in the nominative case or a noun, and it's joined by a linking verb, stated or implied, the subject is what you're talking about, and the predicate is adding some type of a new identity or telling you something about the subject. And that's the difference. The subject is what is being modified, while the predicate nominative, the second nominative, is the modifier. So these are good terms to learn, but it's getting overly complicated. So let's just continue reading. The usage is very common. The equation of S and PN does not necessarily or even normally imply complete correspondence. S being subject, PN being predicate nominative. It's not always, it doesn't always imply complete correspondence. That is, as in the interchangeability of A equals B, B equals A, in a mathematical formula. Rather, the predicate nominative, which is the modifier, not what is being modified, the modifier, the predicate nominative, normally describes a larger category or state to which the subject belongs, that which is modified. Yeah, go figure. TikTok's always flagging me. I'll appeal and not get approved. It's all good. Alright, so this would be like I think it's actually going to give us some examples, but this is like saying Jesse is a man. See, I am a man. I'm in the category of mankind, or maybe the category of males regarding gender. But a man is not Jesse. Not all men are me. Not all humans are me. And this is when you can't use the equation A equals B, B equals A. And most of these predicate nominatives are going to fall into this type of a category where the subject, it belongs to a more broad category. Something to think about. So rather the PN, predicate nominative, the modifier. Sometimes, Anthony, but you're disingenuous. I enjoy talking about Greek with you, but you're disingenuous. I want to stay focused. I need to stay focused. The predicate nominative modifier normally describes a larger category or state to which the S belongs. It is important to keep in mind, however, that there are two distinct types of subject-predicate constructions. These will be discussed below. Two types, and one of them actually has a subtype. So, amplification. The kind of verbs used. The verbs used is for equation, or most frequently Amy, genomai, and huparko. In addition, the passives of some transitive verbs can also be used, such as excuse me, kaleo. Here we have philos theou eklethe. He was called the friend of God in James 3:23. So he was called the friend of God. He doesn't call the friend of God. That would then be an active voice. He was called. So this would be passive voice. And the reason these passive verbs may be predicate nominative is because in English, when we express a passive verb, we always attach a verb of to be with it. Like, for example, I was hit by the bus. A weird sentence. If I say I hit the bus, I'm doing the action to the bus. But if the bus hit me, I'm passive. I'm receiving the action. And in order to translate this, I got to put the verb of to be. Now, when you're translating Greek, passive verbs, they have tense. We'll just do the three easy ones. Past, present, future. Okay? How do I know how to translate that? The verb of to be that is attached to the actual verb will be what expresses the tense. So, if I was to say, I was willing, that would probably be middle voice in Greek. I was on my way home. Okay, that's my state of being. No. I was carrying the briefcase. How about that? I was carrying the briefcase. So, the verb for carrying in Greek would be aorist, and it would be passive. And you don't say, I am carried the briefcase, or I was carried the briefcase. The tense is going to be conveyed by the verb of to be. Now, and if this is also telling your state at the time the action has happened, something is happening to you, and that's why sometimes some verbs end of passive voice can function as a predicate nominative, and being called something is in regards to your identity. So what you are called would be kind of like a predicate nominative. That's what he's trying to say. I hope I didn't make it too complicated for you guys. So it goes on. Then we got Eurisco. You got Eurythemen kai autoi hamartoloi. We ourselves were even found sinners. So the word found would be passive, and it's in the past tense. That's why it says were found, and that's expressing your state of being, and it's adding an identity to you. You are being identified as a sinner, though it's not a typical linking verb. Linking verbs are used with verbs to express a passive voice that sometimes can add identity to you or tell something about your identity. Translation of the subject predicate nominative clauses. English translation requires that the subject be translated first. Such is not the case in Greek. In John 1:1, for example, theos ein hologos should be translated the word was God rather than God was the word. But since Greek word order is far more flexible than English, this creates a problem. How do we distinguish subject from predicate nominative? The subject from its modifier. If word order is not a clear guide, the following section will offer a detailed solution. The semantics and exegetical significance of the subject-predicate nominative construction. Two kinds of semantic relationships. The significance of the subject-predicate construction affects more than mere translation, precisely because subject and predicate nominative do not normally involve total interchangeability. The usual relationship between the two is that the predicate nominative describes the class to which the subject belongs. This is known as a subset proposition, where S, or subject, is a subset of predicate nominative. So let me explain to you the subset proposition real quick in a way that you can kind of remember. Think about that word sub, or subset. All right, sub typically expresses like an under of some sort, right? And set, obviously, is expressing a placement. So the subject would be set under something. And it's going, I believe it's about to go on and tell us that that would be like a category. But it mentioned that up in the text already. So what will actually be set under is a category in which there are multiple entities. I'm just going to say entities that may belong to that category. Like, for example, God is spirit, right? Yeah. But Hebrews 1:7 says that God made his angels ministering spirits. So you can also say angels are spirit. They would all be in the category of spiritual entities. That's just an example. Or I am a man. I already talked about that. I'm a part of mankind. I'm a part of males, but males and mankind are not me. And spirits are not angels, and spirits are not God. Yet God is spirit, and angels are spirits. So that's a subset proposition, being put in a category, a broader category with multiple entities. Thus, the meaning of the word was flesh. The word was flesh is not the same as flesh was the word, because flesh is broader than the word. The word of the cross is foolishness. 1 Corinthians 1:18 does not mean foolishness is the word of the cross, for there are other kinds of foolishness. God is love is not the same as love is God. It can thus be seen from these examples that is does not necessarily mean equals. That's why in the beginning it said, let me just scroll up real quick. I'll drop a little highlight here so I don't forget my spot and double check two kinds of semantic relationships. So it said that the predicate nominative is approximately the same as the subject, and that's why it's saying that, because they're not always interchangeable. A verb of to be doesn't mean that they are equal in every sentence. So scrolling back down to where we were. But there is another less frequent semantic relationship between subject and the subject and the predicate nominative. That is, the subject and its modifier, sometimes called the convertible proposition. This construction indicates an identical exchange. That is to say, both nouns have have an identical referent. The mathematical formula of A equals B and B equals A are applicable in such instances. So this is when the is or the verb of to be would show equality. And what we will find out later, though I don't know if we'll get to it tonight, is if something is equal in definiteness, that is how you would know that they are interchangeable. Like, for example, Hebrews 1:8. Daniel B. Wallace, at some point in his book, acknowledges your throne is God is a valid grammatical translation, though he gives his view of why he doesn't think that that's a proper translation. And if you actually go there, the throne of you is definite because of the definite article, which in English is the. It's a specific throne. Your throne is specific. And the God. So these would be interchangeable. You could say your throne is God and God is your throne. Now, people should not take that in the most literal sense. We all know that God isn't truly a throne. Therefore, such an expression would be metaphorical and open to interpretation. That's just an example. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that I could show you. So let's go ahead and move on. I would disagree with this example, though, because this sounds like an absolute statement, and different people might have different opinions on this statement. A statement such as, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player in NBA history. In NBA history means the same thing as the greatest player in NBA history is Michael Jordan. There is a complete interchange between the two. You can say Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player and the greatest basketball player is Michael Jordan. That would be an interchangeability, but that's up to personal preference on the statement itself. Now, these two kinds of relationships are graphically represented in the chart below, and I want to explain these to you. So over here, you have the subset proposition. This is where the subject is subset in a category of some sort. John is a man. John is in the category of man, but you can't say a man was John. That wouldn't be accurate. That's why it says John is a man does not equal a man is John. Let me get myself out of the way here. So over here, I hope you guys can hear me clearly. My mic's all the way over there now. We have Jesus is the Son of God, right? Jesus is the subject. The modifier is the Son of God. This is the convertible proposition. So try to go back this way because I want to make sure you guys hear me clearly. Let me scroll up a little bit. Jesus is the Son of God equals the Son of God is Jesus. This would be a convertible proposition. These are important because John 1:1, it's important. John 1:14, it's important. And the reason I'm making this video is lay some groundwork. I do actually have something I want to say about John 1:14 and John chapter 2 verse 9, but you guys have to be able to keep up with me, so I'm going to make these to help you understand. I'm not the best teacher, so forgive me. Alright, so chart 4, semantic relationship of the subject and predicate nominative. The semantic relationship. Thus, in examining subject, predicate, nominative clauses, two fundamental questions need to be answered. 1. How can we distinguish between subject and predicate nominative, since the word order is not an infallible guide? And 2. What is the semantic relationship between the two? Is the subject a particular within a larger class of predicate nominative, or is it interchangeable with the predicate nominative? How to distinguish the subject from the predicate nominative. This is important because if this is the section I'm thinking of, the reason I'm going to say it's important is because not always is the verb there. That's why he said earlier, sometimes it's implied, and you'll know by the structure of the sentence. The general principle for distinguishing subject from predicate nominative is that the subject is the known entity. It's the known entity in the context. It's already known, plain as day. Like, for example, let's just scratch all rules. How do I know the word is the subject of the word was God? Well, just think for a second. The very first thing we open with is saying, in the beginning was the Word. What are we talking about? The Word. The Word was toward God. What are we talking about? The Word. It's the state of being is the Word's state of being, not the directional relationship toward the God. The subject is the Word. So when we get to John, God was the Word, should it be translated as God was the Word or the Word was God? Well, the known entity is the Word. And that's just scratching all rules that you're about to learn, assuming we're coming into that section. So that's something to consider. And that's a valid point when you're going to make a case with 1 John 5:20, which is highly contested between Trinitarians, Unitarians, and even oneness maybe. Yeah. So moving on. This principle is valid for both kinds of subject-predicate constructions, for both subset and convertible propositions. In the Greek equative clauses, the known entity, subject, will be distinguished from the predicate nominative in one of three ways discussed below. The significance of the following three rules is that when there is one nominative substantive, and substantive basically means a noun, it's fancy, because sometimes a group of words can function as a noun. That would be like the blue house is a word phrase, that, but the substantive is the blue house is functioning as a noun for just the house itself, you know. That's just keeping it simple for you. When you see substantive, just treat it like a noun until you guys get up there a little bit if you're not up there. So I'm going to reread that. The significance of the following three rules is that when only one nominative substantive has such grammatical tag, the semantic relationship will be that of particular subject to class predicate nominative. That is, the construction will be subset proposition. Okay, so it's going to tell us the three rules for a subset proposition. The subject will be a pronoun, whether stated or implied in the verb. And what they mean, shalom, welcome. I haven't been paying attention to comments, just so everyone knows I'm trying to stay focused. I want this to be a teaching video because I have following videos that are going to come and you need this information. So the subject will be a pronoun, whether stated or implied in the verb. All verbs have a pronoun. Have a subject built into it. The exception would be infinitives, and that's another story. So like all typical verbs, active, middle, or passive, and even a participle will have a pronoun built into it because verbs have gender, so it'll tell you if the subject is masculine, feminine, or neuter. Nothing to do with genetics. It's purely grammatical. It will also have a number, will tell you whether it's singular, plural, and in some cases dual. It will have, I got the number, I had the gender. It will also have number, gender, and person. First person, second person, third person. So it will be either a I, a you, a he, she, or it in the singular. In the plural, it will be a we, a you, you all, or they. Those would be the pronouns built into a verb. It doesn't always need a pronoun. Pronouns are typically added to verbs for emphasis. So Matthew 3:17, it says, "This is my beloved son." We got hutos, estin, uios, mu, agapetos. I don't read Greek a lot. I barely know how to read it, but bear with me. So this is my beloved son. Here you have hutos, which means this. You actually find this in John 1:2, and they translate it as the same in some Bibles. Some Bibles maybe a he, but I think we should just translate it as this all the time because it's a demonstrative pronoun that points back to something in the near context. So this would be the subject here, because it is the pronoun. It gets priority. Remember that. Pronouns get priority. And esteem is the verb of to be. It's in the third person. It's a third person singular. And obviously it's plural because you know what is. And ho uios is the son of me. Mu. And then you have this here word. It's ho agapetos, which is the beloved. We'll get around to that, understanding this construction later. But the subject is this, and the modifier is the beloved son, and they are not convertible, which means you can't say the beloved son is this. This is in the category of beloved sons, so whatever this refers to, and obviously it's Jesus at his baptism at the moment. But God has many beloved sons. Jesus is in the larger category of beloved sons. Then we have Apen, Zacharias, Pros, Ton, angelon, ego eimi, presbytes. So that would be Zachariah said to the angel, I am an old man. So the predicate nominative would be here and here. Ego eimi presbytes. And you can do your research. Daniel B. Wallace will tell you a little later. The pronouns are typically, they're basically for emphasis because Amy already has a pronoun built into it. So if you wanted a super, super literal translation of this verse, it would say, I myself am an old man. And that's how you would translate it. And that's kind of interesting with John 8:58. Because if you were to take a most literal translation, he's not saying before Abraham was I am. He's saying before Abraham was, I myself am. Which obviously is not equivalent to the Hebrew, but that's another story. So this I here, the reason it's a subset proposition is Zechariah is in a larger category of old men. Old men are not Zechariah, but Zechariah is an old man. Another one be Acts 2:15. Here they put the they imply an it to it. What are we talking about? Because a time is an it, it's not a he or she. Okay. Estin, hora, treat, taste. This would be emeros. It is the third hour. It is the third hour of the day. So the third hour of the day is it. That's a weird one, but it's saying that it is the third hour of the day. The third hour of the day is not it. That's the thing. It's in the larger category of the third hour. There's lots of things that are in the third hour of the day, whatever they may be. There's more than one it, I'm sure, because it could be referring to an event, the time, an appointment, Yeah. And then there's some more examples right here. John 9:8, that's an interesting one. The neighbors therefore, you can't see the pop-up, I'm sorry. The neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that was blind said, is not this he that sat and begged? Yeah, and then verse 9, he says, ego eimi. Okay. Just some more examples. If you guys are watching this, you can pause, jot down the verses, go to your interlinear Bibles for a little further of a study. So those are pronouns first. Pronouns always get the priority. They will always be the subject. And if there is no subject, there's no nominative case. If there's only one nominative with a verb, that nominative will be the predicate. The verb has the pronoun. But if there is two nominatives, the subject will be articular. This is the second way. It's going to be the most definite noun. Definiteness established by the definite article translated as the. This is why, we'll just read John 4:24. This is an interesting one because this actually has an implied verb of to be. It says pneuma hologos. There's no verb of to be here, but in the future, if we get that far, you'll learn about different positions, predicate position, attributive position, and the structure of the sentence will tell you whether the noun is modifying it or if it's used appositional to it or if an adjective is modifying it. Actually, they're both modifiers. Let me restate what I said. If there's two nouns, one will be a predicate nominative if it's in predicate position, or it will be an apposition, which is basically kind of like an adjective for those that don't know. The blue house, the color blue is modifying the house to tell you what color it is. You can see it in English, like Officer Ray. Officer is a noun, Ray is a noun, but these two nouns are in opposition side by side. This would be attributive because they're attributing something regarding the identity of the subject. But if it's a predicate position, whether it's a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective, there's certain sentence structures that's down the road. This here would be predicate position. I'll just give you a sneak peek. The reason they know is they're not equal in definiteness. There is no pronoun. That and pneuma comes before theos. If it comes before theos and it's attributive, it needs a definite article, but it doesn't have it. That means it's in predicate position, so you would say God is spirit. Now, some might say God is a spirit. Some might say God is spirit. Daniel B. Wallace feels like it should be God is spirit. I don't remember exactly his reasoning for that. And I'm not reading any commentary through the teaching of these grammatical rules. I might make a second video on that. Maybe. So the next one is Hebrews 1:10. So it says, hold on, I'm over here. Erga ton Kairon, Sul Esin Oi Ornoi. That's a weird one. Oranoi. I can't say that, but that's weird. Oranoi. The heavens are the works of your hands. So the subject would be the heavens, and the predicate is the works of your hands. The verb of to be, the linking verb is the are, and that would be right here. Is seen. And you got it backwards. So I guess heaven's over here. I don't know my declension of nouns just yet. So yes. The heavens are in the larger category of God's hands, because God's hands has made many things. So you can't say the works of God's hands are the heavens, or else the earth would be the heavens also. You would be the heavens. This is a subset proposition. The heavens are in the larger categories of things made with God's hands. Then we have kurios, esteem, hos uios, to anthropo kai to sabbato. So the Son of Man is Lord even over of the Sabbath. Here you have kurios is not definite, esteem is the verb of to be, and hoios is definite. Therefore, this one's weird. I question this translation sometimes, but I'll just go with it for a moment. So, the Son of Man is Lord in a broader category. You cannot say the Lord is the Son of Man. And that's actually interesting for those who try to say Lord means God, because this is a subset proposition that puts the Son of Man in a broader category of lords. So you can't say only God is Lord. That's silly. But in some grammatical constructions you can, like in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 6. But there's some context to explain that to you. So, yeah. The subject will be a proper name. This is the third category. And I think after this, he might try to tell you that an articular noun and a proper name are roughly equal in definiteness. So, but he's putting the proper name after the definite article. So here we got egeneto, Iones, tois nevutius Simeon. Jonah became assigned to Nineveh. So egeneto obviously means to become. And the reason this would be a linking verb is because it's showing a change in state where the subject is becoming something else, but the something else still refers back to the subject. You understand? So it doesn't mean they're the same after it becomes something else, but it's showing a change in identity. It's still the same referent with a new identity of some sort. I'm just going to leave it there. So egeneto, and then this right here would be for Jonah, Ionas, and this would be the Nineveh, tois, ninutes, and then this would be a sign. So, and that's why it's tois, because it's dative. Simeon would be in the nominative form of, I don't remember the actual word for sign. So he's a proper name. What he becomes is a sign. A sign is not Jonah, but Jonah is a sign. This is a subset proposition. He's in the larger category of signs. Signs are not Jonah. So 1 Corinthians 3:5 says, and this is interesting because in English we write our interrogative sentence backwards. Like instead of saying Jonah is a sign, you might say is a sign Jonah. See how our subject would then fall at the end, but the predicate would come first. So something to keep in mind with these questions. But we got Tion, Estin, Apollos. So what then is Apollos? Here, this T means what? And the verb to be is Estin, and then you have Apollos. If I were to make this a statement and not a question, I would say Apollos is what? Instead of what is Apollos, what is Apollos is the question. And Apollos is what would be the statement. And that's actually, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if that's an indefinite. I forget what that particle is actually called. Let's just read the commentary here. So it says, interrogative pronouns are translated first even though the other nominative is the subject, following our general principle that the subject is known. Following the general principle that the subject is known, this can easily be seen here. The semantic force of this sentence can be restated. Apollos belongs to what larger category? That's why I was getting confused, because we don't say Apollos is what. So Apollos belongs to what larger category? Whatever that what is. Yeah, that's a little tricky. Then James 5:17 says, Elias anthropos ein. That's an easy one. So I'm actually thinking about this one right here, because if you were to substitute these words out, Elijah, which would be Elias, is the subject, would be equal to hologos. Anthropos would be the predicate noun, which would be equal to theos. And ein is the same verb to be in John 1:1c, and is translated as Elijah was a man. Jehovah's Witnesses might say the word was a god. I don't believe the Old Testament writers would write like that. I'm sorry, They're not. That's another story. Yeah. So this James 5:17 is kind of synonymous with John 1:1c, and that's supposed to be qualitative, though we haven't really read about that just yet. So that would express an equality about Elisha. Now here comes the pecking order. The pecking order. What if both subject and predicate nominative have one of these three tags? Which is the subject and what is the semantic relationship? First, when both subjects bear such grammatical tags, the pecking order is as followed. The pronoun has the greatest priority. So, what are we talking about? Well, we have I am the light. I am a pronoun, am is the verb to be, and the light is definite. So, how do I know if the light is I or I am the light? And the general rule that they're laying out is pronouns get the priority. I used to honestly try to argue John 17:3 was a predicate nominative structure, and sometimes I still wonder about that, but that's another story. Anyways, the pronoun has the greatest priority all the time over proper names, over definite articles. Pronoun is automatically subject. Why? Because the general rule is that the subject refers back to the known entity, and pronouns always have a referent in the immediate context. I would dare say always. So that's why pronouns have the priorities. It will be the subject regardless of what grammatical tag the other substantive has. Matthew 11:14. Kai e thelete desa sothai autos estin Elias. And if you will receive it, he is Elias. So the pronoun here would be autos. The verb to be is esteem, and the subject is Elias. Now I need to close this. I didn't mean to do that. Pronouns get priority even if Elijah is a proper name. And I would still say, if you wanted to be really strict with the translation, it would say, he himself is Elijah. Because there's already a pronoun built into the verb. Pronouns added to verbs are typically for emphasis. So he himself is Elijah. And that would be Jesus speaking. Then we got autos esteem, houyas, to Theo. He is the Son of God. So autos would be a demonstrative pronoun, this, and I think the other one is ikonos, means that, singular or plural. This or these, that or those. Those are demonstrative pronouns because they're pointing to something, near or far. So autos esteem, that pronoun's the subject. This one here is the verb of to be, and houyos is a definite son of God, but he's not the subject. He's actually modifying this. Remember, we're still talking about subset propositions. So this one is the Son of God. He's actually in a larger category of sons of God. You can't say, though earlier, yeah, you could have at that point, because he hasn't stated it yet, but definite articles and proper names are roughly equal in definiteness, but pronouns get a priority here. This one is in a larger category of sons of God, but sons of God, the Son of God is not this one, because there's other in that category. Alright, so 1 John 5:9. Wow, a nice long sentence for me to work on my Greek. A marturia tou theo meson estin hodi alte estin a marturia tou theo. The testimony of God is greater. This is the testimony of God. So what we're working with right here would be, it says this is the testimony of God, but this is alte estin a harturia tu theo. It's been a long day. I got off work just a little bit ago, and I'm like an hour away from bed, so I'm pretty down. So I'm guessing alte is a form of altos, but I don't know why. This is the testimony of God. Oh, maybe because I got it. So testimony, yeah, maturia, it's feminine. So this must be the feminine form of whatchamacallit, autos. That's why this is. This is the testimony of God, but the testimony is not this. So whatever they're talking about at the moment, that is in a larger category as a subset proposition to other testimonies of God. But that particular testimony, the testimonies of God are not that particular thing. Not all testimony of God is whatever's being discussed right here. This is 1 John 5:9, and that's the testimony of what God's saying about his son coming in flesh. So the testimony of God is greater. Okay. Articular nouns and proper names seem to have equal priority. That's what I was thinking about earlier. There was a verse up. He said Jesus is the Son of God. The Son of God is Jesus. This is a convertible proposition. Yet we just seen a verse that said this one is the Son of God. And it's most likely referring back to Jesus, but Jesus is in a larger category of sons of God. So, it's kind of ironic. In one sentence, you could say, I'd probably have to think about that on a deeper level. One sentence basically puts Jesus in a larger category of sons of God, and the other one is saying that Jesus is the only one in that category. It's probably because of the demonstrative pronouns, which don't have equal definiteness, and that's probably why it's conveying two different messages. So something to think about later. I'm a deep thinker, though, Dr. Argalza. I might as well mispronounce his name I'll let that go. Dr. Al Garza thinks I'm AI trained, but I've done a lot of research before I ever even got this book or ever touched AI. It is what it is. So, articular nouns and proper names seem to have equal priority in instances where one substantive is articular, the other is a proper name, or where both are articular, the word order may be the determining factor. I would dare say at that point, if they're both articular, that would be a convertible proposition, so I don't see a problem with the word order. Because if a convertible proposition is A equals B and B equals A, and I used the example if you were to turn Hebrews 1:8 into a predicate nominative, where the throne of you, the God, are equal in definiteness, you should be able to say your throne is God and God is your throne. So word order really doesn't matter. In that respect. However, it might matter, I guess you can go with that, it might matter as to what the emphasis is on in the context. So here's a good example. We got John 8:39. We got Hoparter, Amon, Avraham, Estin. So the father of us, Abraham is. Our father is Abraham. So Here they're both, we got a definite article in front of father, and Abraham's a proper name. The father's mentioned first, Abraham second, and that would probably be why a sentence would matter, because they want to put an emphasis on who their father is instead of just making saying that Abraham is our father. And in that context, they're actually, I don't remember at the moment, because they said the same thing in a couple verses later. They said that we're not born of fornication, but we have one Father, God. Yeah. John 15:1. And these would be convertible propositions. These are not subsets. The father of us is Abraham. Abraham is the father of us. And I'm trying to think of it as a subset, but according to the rules he laid out, they shouldn't be subset. We got ho pater, mu, ho georo, goes, geor, goes. I can't trill my tongue. I can't even speak Mexican. I speak to English. Esteen. My father is the vine dresser. Here, ho pater is the definite noun, and ho gerogos would be the vine dresser. They're equal in definiteness. Father comes first, therefore the emphasis on the father. The father would be the subject. And these are, this is another thing that's interesting. Here, these two are definite. I'll have to look at, I don't know if we're going to get into the qualitative tonight. We'll see how it works. But being pre-verbal, I wonder if there is a, no, not in a convertible proposition, but I wondered about that. All right, so here we got uk e meter auto legatai Mariam kai oil oi sorry. Oh, yeah, that's the way. Ad Adelphoi auto Ecopos kai eosef kai. I'm definitely tired. I'm not reading that. I'm tired. I'm sorry. Is not his mother named Mary and his brothers James, Joseph, and Simeon and Judas? So this is a question. Is not his mother of him named Mary and his brothers? It's not even a verb to be here. This is implied. This one's a little bit more difficult. And there's a list of names. I'm skipping it. I'm moving on. More references. You guys can pause the video right now. Jot these down. Matthew 6:22. 1 John 2:7. The semantic relationship. Convertible proposition. So semantic relationship. The second semantic relationship in such instances that of the convertible proposition, that is to say, when both substantives meet one of the three qualifications for subject, then they become interchangeable. Both substantives, the subject and the predicate. So then they became interchangeable. Like, you're never going to find a pronoun subject and a pronoun predicate. So that's out of the question. And but if you have a proper name and a definite article, convertible. If you have a definite article and a definite article, convertible. A definite article and a proper name, convertible. Because definite articles and proper names are roughly equal indefiniteness, according to what he said earlier. I'm just going by his rules. A scholar, by the way, Mr. Algarza. Seeing examples in the preceding section. Exegetically significant passages. There are scores of passages impacted by the semantics of the subject-predicate construction. Just a few will be noted below. The subset proposition, 1 John 4:8. O theos, agape, esteem. God is love. So, a subset proposition is clearly seen in this passage. God has the quality of love, but is not identical with it. If this were a convertible proposition, it would affirm pantheism, which I don't know what is, or at least panentheism. So, as I said, I don't know exactly how far down before he talks about the qualitative position, if we'll get to it tonight or not. I would like to cover all the predicate nominative section, but we got to remember something. Grammar doesn't convey ontology. So just because something has a quality or is qualitative, you got to ask yourself, what kind of quality is it? Because like there's essential qualities and then there's personal qualities. So you just because something's qualitative doesn't mean it make it ontological. Like for example, and I was thinking about this earlier. Some people want to argue that the word was God expresses that God's nature is in the word because it's qualitative expressing his nature, right? But what if I said Jesus was a cop? What is the nature of a cop? If I said Jesus is a cop, what is the nature of a cop? If it's an expressing, or Jesus is police, and that's expressing a quality about Jesus, he would have the qualities of a policeman, but what is the nature of a policeman? Dogs are police officers. Would Jesus be a dog or would he be a human police officer? What's actually being expressed are qualities. They don't exactly tell you ontological qualities. You know what I'm saying? So we can't just assume that. Grammar doesn't put that forth. That's just something for you to think about. John 1:1. Oh boy. Hologos ein pros ton theon kai theos ein hologos. The Word was with God and the Word was God. Again, a subset proposition is envisioned here. The Logos belongs to the larger category known as God. The force of this construction is most likely to emphasize the nature of the Word, not his identity. Okay. That is to say, the Word is true deity, but he is not the same person as the theos mentioned earlier in the verse. I would push back on this commentary, though. Of course I would. To emphasize nature, is nature a quality or does nature have qualities? If this is qualitative, it would express quality, not a nature of qualities. And when it says the nature of the word, not his identity, that's where there would be a convertible proposition. That would be called numerical identity. If the word was God and God was the word, that's numerical identity. So it's telling you something about the nature of the word. And nature, qualitative, doesn't mean ontological nature, you know. People use that word too loosely. To say the word is true deity is silly because words don't self-exist. They come into existence by a speaker, thinker, or writer. They don't exist on their own. They don't exist without an origin. So I wouldn't say the word was really a deity. And not the same person as Theos mentioned in the previous clause, I'll say, or mentioned earlier in the verse. that don't follow. There's nothing that can confirm that. That's a presupposition. That's an interpretation. So second, Philippians 2:13, for the one working in you is God. Most English translations render theos as subject. The substantival participle is the subject since it is articular. The reason, now this is a very interesting verse. I forgot about this, bro. This, what I'm about to read to you, go look at Romans 9:5, and you'll find out that that clause is a predicate nominative and Jesus isn't being called the blessed God. But anyways, yeah. Although the English translation renders theos, I gotta remember that. Let me write that down. I need to put that in a video. I do need to make a video on Romans 9:5 and explain it fully so people can understand it. Romans 9:5, Philippians 2:13. Yeah. So what I'm about to read to you could be applied there. Although most English translations render theos as subject, the substantival participle is the subject since it's articular. A substantive, why can't I say that word? Substantival participle is a participle with a definite article. It functions as a noun. A participle is it's basically a verbal adjective, and it can function as an adjective, it can function as a noun. I don't recall if it can function as an adverb. I don't recall that. But since it's adjectival, if you were to put an article with it, it can function as a noun. Just like with an adjective, you can put an article with it and it becomes a noun. Like, for example, the color blue, right? The color blue would actually be a noun, but if blue is describing something, it's functioning as an adjective. And if I say the blue one, that would turn the adjective into a noun. The color is probably not the best choice. How about big? Big is an adjective. But if I want to turn it into a noun, say the big one, I just put a definite article with it. Same thing with participles. So that's what I would say about Romans 9:5, because whole own is used there, and theos is also used there, but theos is not definite, and that's his argument here. He says the reason theos stands first in the sentence then is for emphasis. Further, there is a subtle difference between ho theos and theos. The anauthorous theos seems to be viewed somewhat qualitative. Paul is stressing God's power more than his person, for the issue raised by verse 12 has to do with the how of sanctification, not the who. So adverb or adjective, they just color words, which also colors the nouns, so you cannot create fact. That don't make much sense to me, I'm sorry. But yeah, remember this. Go check your Romans 9:5. Maybe I'll do a video on that soon. You point people back to this video to help them understand. So John 20:31. I'm just reading the English because I'm tired and I want to speed it up. These things have been written that you might know that Jesus is the Christ. So this is a convertible proposition where you have, but I don't know if I would agree that it's a convertible proposition, because people are assuming the Christ is Jesus' name, but really, Christos is just an adjective. So if you put a definite article with it, then it becomes a noun. But I got to freshen my memory on the predicate position and attributive positions regarding verbs of to be, predicate adjectives, so I might just let that slide for now. What he's saying, though, is the Christ is equal in definiteness with the proper name Jesus. Therefore, it's a convertible proposition. You can say the Christ is Jesus and Jesus is the Christ. D.A. Carson has an interesting hypothesis on. Oh, and by the way, this would be the critical text. KJV doesn't have a verb of to be, which is why I would argue it's written that you might know that Jesus is the anointed Son, not the anointed, the Son of God, but rather the anointed is actually an adjective and attributive position to the Son of God, which means Jesus is a Son of God by anointing, not without. So moving on. D.A. Carson has an interesting hypothesis on John 20:31. His view is that the question John is answering is not who is Jesus, the one that Christians would ask, but who is the Messiah, one the Jews would ask. Thus the text would be translated that you might believe. Hold on. I scrolled and I lost my place. That you might believe that the Messiah is Jesus. Hence, the fourth gospel is written essentially for a Jewish audience. The fundamental argument Carlson is using is grammatical. Viz, I don't know what that means. That an articular noun takes priority over a proper name. He considers the New Testament to contain firm syntactical evidence to this effect. But as we have seen, the evidence is ambiguous, and if anything, moves in the opposite direction. Either the first noun is the subject or the proper name is the subject. Thus, the grammatical leg of his argument is invalid. In addition, in 1 John, this same construction occurs 4 times, specifically either Iesus estin ho uios to theo, 1 John 4:15, 5:5, or Iesus estin ho Christos, 1 John 2:22, 5:1. Yet the audience seems clear to be of the Gentile nature. In short, there is no grammatical argument that John is written to the Jews. Such a view must be based on other grammar where, in fact, the case seems less well-founded. Me personally, I don't believe that John was writing to a Jewish audience, or he wouldn't have to tell them, the preparation was a high day. He wouldn't talk about a feast of the Jews. Yeah. So, substitution for a predicate nominative. Ice plus the accusative. Ice plus the accusative is occasionally found replacing the predicate nominative in the New Testament. An example, this is why people might say, your throne, O God, is forever. They're going to assume the ice, what is it? I think ages of ages, so I don't remember those words specifically, but into the ages of ages is functioning as a substantive. And let's read more of what he's got to say about that. Although this construction is found in the papyri, it is usually due to semantic influence, Hebrew lamed. This idiom is frequent in Old Testament quotation, as can be seen in the references below, that the construction is equivalent to the subject predicate nominative construction can be seen in Matthew 19:5 and 6. In verse 5, the entrance into the new state is mentioned with this construction. So we got Esontai oi duo eis sarka mion. The two shall become one flesh. So this word must be become. The two become into one flesh. So this would be functioning as a substantive, a prepositional phrase functioning as a substantive. Followed by the next verse by a declaration of the resultant state with the predicate nominative. Then we got hote, uketi, esin, duo, ala, sorex, mia. The construction occurs with one genomai, genomai, two, ami, typically in the future tense and less frequently, logizomai. I don't know what that word is. I haven't seen that one. So that would work with the verb of to be, the verb of to become, and I don't recognize this word. So with genomai, you got the stone that has become the chief cornerstone. Whoa, what did I do? Wow. I kind of want to look it up to see what the rest of these here. The stone, the becoming into the chief cornerstone. Alluding to Psalm 118:22, a text frequently applied to Christ in the New Testament. Then you got this one, let their table become a snare and a trap. Their table become into a snare and a trap. That's interesting because I actually understand that because the verb genomai expresses a change in state or like a change in nature, and the preposition ice is a point reached or entered into. So what it's saying is let something become into something. Let something become into a new state. And that state would be functioning as a noun in a sense. So I can kind of understand why the Hebrews would talk like that in the Greek. So Amy, the two shall become one flesh. So I guess that's a middle voice. I recognize Thai. That's a middle voice. They shall be one flesh. Then we got Hebrews 1:5. I shall become a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. That's interesting. I shall be to him the point reached or entered into a father, which means he wouldn't have been a father beforehand. And if that's applied to Jesus, whoa, Jesus wouldn't have been a son beforehand. Dude, I gotta write that down too. Hold on. That's another video that needs raised. If you gotta enter into the position of being a son of God, you're not an eternal son of God. That needs to be a video. 100%. Quoting 2 Samuel 7:14, a passage often cited in the New Testament as having messianic significance. Now, with this word, maybe I'll get a clue in the translation, because like I said, I don't recognize this word. The temple of the great goddess Artemis might be regarded as nothing. Oh. So I wonder if that's a subjunctive form of something. Let's look at the next one. Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. We got reckoning and regarding. I gotta learn what that word is. I'm moving on. So the nominative and simple apposition, we're not going to get into that. Let me see where we're at here. Okay. I may actually call it a night. I think we got the basics of a predicate nominative. I thought there was something a little bit more explicit on the qualitativeness of it, or maybe it was just that short little paragraph. But these are foundation principles that I'll point back to later. And I think I might do another video on an accusative complement, because I want to talk about John 1:14 to show people that the word becoming flesh means there is a change in nature, that it does not mean to take on. And if you actually go to the Greek of Philippians chapter 2, verse thinking 7, the word labano doesn't mean to take on, off the top of my head, unless it's a textual variant. So that said, my friends, thank you for being with me. I'm going to get myself ready for bed bright and early tomorrow. I go to work. I'm seriously a hard-working man. I do this stuff on the side for God's glory. So pray that God gives me strength and endurance and opens my heart and my mind to receive the fullness of His Word and humility, and to help me with my patience, because in the apologetic realm, there's a lot of people that are in it for the wrong reasons, so sometimes they can test your patience. That's as plain as I can be. I love you guys. Stay study to show yourself approved. Good night.